everyone. My name's Sammy. Welcome to the Artillery Art Debates. First off, thank you to Artillery for having us. This is Janelle Zara. She's the editor-in-chief. She runs the program. It's probably one of the best art magazines in LA at this time. So I'm going to introduce everyone quickly, and then we're going to get jamming. So first here we have Adam Higgins, is a painter based in LA, represented by Chris Sharp. Give up for Adam. Next we have Janelle Zara, as a freelance journalist and author. She is a contributor to edited their stuff on magazines that start with art, Artillery, Art News, Artnet, Art Newspaper, and Financial Times. Next we have Keith J. Varadi. Am I saying your last name right? How do I say it? Varadi. Keith J. Varadi is an artist, curator, former Jeopardy researcher, and the Galler's Pine Jeans Dispensary. Next we have Andrew Berardini, is a writer and art critic, curator and editor. He's a longtime contributor to Art Forum and a former critic of the LA Weekly. Christina Catherine Martinez is an artist. Last but not least, we have Wyatt Coday, is a writer, researcher, and critic. She is a contributor to Artillery, Los Angeles Review of Books, and SF Moment. Okay, so we're gonna get jamming, right? Yeah. Okay, so the way it's gonna work is we're gonna have the first person come up, and they're gonna respond to the first question. Then the other debaters are gonna be kind of taking notes somewhat, or I don't know, taking hot takes to be able to call out what they think, responding essentially to the person. They're gonna contribute what they think, and then the other side of the debate's gonna go and is gonna go back and forth a little bit. So let's get started. I think our first is Janelle Zara. And put up Janelle. The first topic is there are too many galleries. I think you can chill if you want, or you want to go up and stand there and chill. Perhaps, I don't know. Okay, give it up to Janelle.
Hello everyone, thanks for coming. Is this on? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we loud enough? Maybe we need to go a little louder.
Amplify women's voices!
Yeah.
Hello everybody. So,
The argument is there are too many galleries. Who knows the feeling? There's really challenge and not being able to find contribution. And then you go from one gallery to the next, and it feels like just a continuous, unmemorable series of identical white boxes. I feel that it is because there are too many galleries. I will say that there is never enough art, but in reality, a gallery is a commercial endeavor. And I think commercial endeavors are quintessentially the opposite of art. Their goals are diametrically opposed. I think that as we kind of start to many galleries coming to Los Angeles, it's not made art better. And I don't think it's benefited the local ecosystem. And I think that there are alternative models there that do not have a financial goal at the end that would maybe better support creative endeavors and risk-taking and experimentation. I think that at the Highland, we have a series of mega galleries with indiscernible programs. Is Jeff Koons at Pace or Gagosian right now? We cannot tell, and it does not make a difference. And I think at the lower end, we have a lot of smaller operations where perhaps it seems a young person wants to start their own business and build a name for themselves. But that's not necessarily the only way forward. That I think we should have more collaboration, and maybe we combine forces and only show things when we're ready, rather than adhering to an art schedule, which is inherently a commercial endeavor. So that's why there are too many galleries.
Okay, so before you start, Andrew, we'll go around quickly, and we're going to have give everyone a second to respond to Janelle's argument. What points do you want Andrew to pick up on, I guess? That's the idea. if anyone wants to go. Yeah.
So I'm gonna always be a problem because I'm always gonna be like tangential here, because I feel like there's all kinds of spoken and unspoken assumptions as we proceed. And so yeah, I too do not enjoy the sort of galleries on Western, but I think that we use the word gallery, we're often talking about exhibition spaces, and as a person who kind of came to all through DIYs in Chicago, I miss artist-run spaces. I miss them so much.
Why? This is not your debate.
And what I'm saying is, when we talk about too many galleries, is that because we're going to this commercial part of it?
Yeah.
But I'm saying that I just want to be specific. It's not about, there's not enough spaces, or there are too many commercial spaces. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Okay.
Right?
Let's make sure that we just list the points that we want Andrew to pick up on.
I'm sure he's going to talk about some of these things. I'm just trying to get ahead of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want Andrew to, because I think he's going to touch on, obviously, there's a difference between like DIY space and artist-run space versus like the commercial gallery ecosystem. But I would love to know about that relationship between the two, for better or worse. Because sometimes artist-run spaces feel like they're audition spaces to get into the commercial gallery system, and sometimes they're like community spaces to like meet people to have sex.
One thing I'd like Andrew to talk about is if art and galleries are diametrically opposed, because of the commercial aspect, how would we collectively suggest artists make money from their art?
Yeah, the point that I heard were parking sucks, which is true for me. And then commercial galleries are diametrically opposed to art or hurt art in some ways. Those are the points that came up, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We want you to address those. Parking sucks and diametrically opposed.
Okay. I don't have any slides, but can I not have Jeff Koons here?
I'm gonna set an alarm. I'm gonna go here, okay? We have like 2 minutes to respond.
2 minutes.
Set alarm.
Oh, I thought I had 5 minutes. But
You can take 5 minutes.
No, this is
if
2
you want.
minutes. I can respond in 2 minutes.
Okay.
It's totally chill. Thank you all for being here and listening to this and the invitation. This is a really funny topic to me because there are too many galleries, and Janelle's idea is that there's not enough parking, which just tells me that there's just not enough parking spaces. And it has nothing to do with the existence of the galleries themselves. And that is, does art have a diametric opposition to commerce? I mean, I would love to live in fully automated luxury communism, absolutely. I'm really ready for it. But in the meantime, galleries are a wildly important source of revenue and life force for so many artists and for the community. And I don't think that they're opposed. We have to live under the conditions that we live under. We have to try to make as much beauty and poetry as we can with the conditions that we have. So commerce, I think, is actually quite liberating to a lot of artists. And yeah, I want artists to be fully funded and granted and supported by our governments or foundations or whatever, or not have to make money at all in the right society. But for right now, yeah, commerce helps art rather than hinders it, in my opinion. Did I respond to you?
So now, Janelle, you can respond, right? Is that
We want to list the points that we want Janelle to respond.
Right.
Should we be on
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do we have 2 mics?
We do.
Yeah, there's one.
So just stick to the points that Andrew said that you want Janelle to respond to.
Well, I think this is clarification.
Another tangent.
Okay. Again, I just want to be clear. A gallery can be both a commercial enterprise and one that is slightly less commercial. The Brick is an exhibition space, a gallery that's on Western. Is it a commercial gallery? No. So I think this question of revenue is important. That's why I'm bringing this up. That's all I want to say.
Thank you.
Can I also tell you something?
Yeah.
It's related to
Yes.
So I think that also, perhaps we could be thinking about new models. It doesn't have to be big commercial white cube spaces on Western, or the brick, or an artist-run space that was started by a bunch of recent CalArts MFA students. There can be other hybrid type spaces, and they can be inspired by things that have been created in other industries, like the music industry, film industry, all over. You know, like UCD, Upright Citizens Brigade. It was a new model that can be applied to the art. Just a thought.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm interested in maybe, just defining what we mean by galleries. And if they have to, if a lot of them close or it's difficult to run a gallery, does that necessarily mean there's too many? Or is are the vagaries of real estate just endemic to, figuring out how to make space for art, et cetera, et cetera?
Oh.
That was a week ago.
I also have one more note.
Is it about what
Yes.
Andrew said? Okay.
Yes. Maybe it's not about whether or not there are too many galleries. Are there enough patrons?
Do you want me to contribute to this?
No, I want you to list Andrew's points. That you want Janelle to talk to.
Andrew's points are that galleries in our current system, the galleries help support artists and their lives, and that the literal space of where we park our cars has nothing to do with the amount of galleries or the value of art or whatever. I will say that a shuttle could be good. We could do a shuttle.
Art bus.
So we want you to respond to that commerce is liberating to artists, and what was that one? And we want artists supported by the government.
We can have this one.
Yeah.
Okay, I would say that commerce can be, resources are liberating. I don't think commerce is liberating. I think commerce is deeply tied to financialization, which is this totally different thing where collectors are no longer investing in creative endeavors, but financial returns. So I think what's happened, so the question is, how are we defining galleries? And I'm defining them as a commercial space. Did we define how much is too many? I think there's been such proliferation of galleries since the early 2000s at almost an exponential rate. And they will come and they will go. But I feel like that we have a critical mass where there's a lot of redundancy, or there's a lot of work that is just not really prepared to be seen, or there's no buyer for it. So I think we really need to think that things are not infinite, that maybe we could go more slowly and more meaningfully and less trying to push out as much product as possible. So commerce is not liberating, I would say, because we have come into this position where we're allowing collectors to lead the way rather than artists. And I think that has diminishing returns, that it reaches this kind of safety risk aversion inflection point where the creativity starts going down because you're trying to please perhaps the most conservative people on earth.
So Andrew, I think the points we would want you to touch on were the critical mass, is there too much redundancy, and then the allowing collectors to kind of lead all of this versus artists.
Critical mass creates redundancy, and collectors are defining things. Yeah.
I think that we have seen it in critical mass, and you can tell because there's a lot of redundancy.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna step back for a second because, how do I say this? There are not enough galleries, and there just isn't. And Wyatt's point, yeah, I want every kind of exhibition space you can imagine out there. I want diversity of styles and varieties and different kinds of buildings. I want them in garages, on rooftops, in parks. I want them everywhere. And like, I love art, and when I go see it, like when I go to the carnival, I like missing some rides. Like I get to yearn for things. There's too many for me to see, and that delights me endlessly. And I want this. It's like I became an art critic because I really love art, and the more of it I get, the happier I am. To respond very specifically to Janelle's points, like, I want more galleries because I want more people advocating for their visions of art. And like, that can be any variety of things. Like, any one of us can open a gallery tomorrow and like start showing things that we think are beautiful, different, powerful, and meaningful. And like, whether we succeed as a business or not, is like not as relevant to me as like the attempt to make things happen in the world. For us to like see new things and like push culture in the directions we want it to. And I don't think that if there's redundancy, it's like a failure of imagination of the current galleries that are there, which would only mean that we still need more, because the ones that are there are not doing the job we want them to do. And the other, what was the other point you guys wanted me to respond to?
I erased it.
That's fine. You hate it all.
Oh, it's about collectors.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like, I want art to be democratic, universal, and for everybody, and we have institutions that do that, like the Brick or Mocha or LACMA. And I love those places, and I want more of those in the world. But like, any of us could be collectors. Like, so like, it's not like a more monolithic group of people that have one singular opinion. And like, museums collect too. Are they defining? Are they included in the phrase of collectors? I don't know. Like, they're just a group of people like any other group. And maybe I like what they like, maybe I don't. But I don't need art to make money to be meaningful to me.
So let's go around and why don't you all say what you want? Because Janelle's going to respond. So let's do that one more time. So why don't you tell us what you want from?
Yeah, so I'm theater trained. But I would like to address the idea of, I think there's an unanswered question of like the secondary versus the primary market. We talked about the impact of collectors, or when the line between maybe patronage versus, turning art into a purely financial product. That's all
So I'm not theater trained, and I also refuse to let go of points. So to clarify, when I talk about artist-run spaces in Chicago, art is being bought and sold. I don't work for broke bitches, and I also don't participate in free exchange. I'm a very capitalist girl at the end of the day because I want to make my work. What I'm disappointed in is the idea that commercial galleries are the only spaces where art is sold. So to your point, the secondary market is very important to me. These kind of black market spaces are very important to me. And so I want to emphasize what you were saying before about this financialization. I don't always think it's bad for things to be financialized. I just think that quote unquote anyone can enter or collect is not true. You have to have the resources, whether they're money or otherwise, to be able to collect and store your collection, right? So that's expensive.
In addition to not everybody being able to collect, which I agree with, because, some of us are having a difficult time buying fucking groceries. I don't understand how, people could buy paintings if they can't, go out to dinner. I also think it's very difficult for a lot of people.
I would say yeah.
Okay, yeah, well, we are talking about, I thought we were talking about supporting artists. We could do backpats, which is essentially like I like your art, can I put it on my wall? Like, yeah, I appreciate that, but I would like, money in my bank account more than a pat on the back. Anyway, the other thing I was going to say is not everybody can be a gallery owner either. It would be nice if everybody had the resources and the support and all the things that is required to open a gallery, but 99.9% of the world can't for various reasons. So,
Adam, anything you want to? Any points you want Janelle to respond to? So.
Okay, so
So this is the final response, right? Okay, cool.
I want to say to all the gallerists in the room present, company excluded, you're all doing a great job. But primarily, quantity is not quality. Quality is not quantity. More is not better. I think that we need to actually be more judicious and more discerning rather than just piling more and more on. It's like this very capitalist notion that we just need to like make more spaces and fill them like as fast as we can and always have an audience and always have like a new show and a certain schedule. And I don't think that's true. I think art should just kind of roll out as it comes to the artist. It's something that forms over time. I think when you give an exhibition schedule to an artist, or like you put parameters like the economy onto an artistic practice, it's no longer art, it becomes a product. And so like, and to your point, Andrew, where you say like, there should be more people showing art. It's like, you and I as writers are both creative people, but that does not mean we should start our own magazine, or that we need another magazine to like fill all of the ideas in the world. I think we actually have a dearth of good writers, you know? It's, once again, quantity is not quality. Yeah, and that's, and then we had a point about like the quality of gallerists as well. When you are not capable of stewarding an artist's career, that's fine, your gallery will probably go under, but you'll also take artists with you. And so I think we also need to think about that. Like, is everybody capable hands?
Okay. So give it up for the two. Don't go yet, because we want people to see. So we're gonna do like an audience is gonna decide who won this debate. So are there too many galleries? Let's give it up. We need more galleries. It felt pretty good. I'm not gonna lie.
I sat in the front row for a fucking reason.
Okay, well, I'm gonna say that was a tie. So I thought you both were agree with me, honestly. Okay, so the next topic is, oh yeah, we're gonna click the slides around. So our next topic is bring back gatekeeping. Our first, for the pro that we need to give yes, bring back gatekeeping, is Adam. Yeah, come stand over here. And Christina is going to do the no. Yeah.
Okay. We do clicking? Just click? Yep. Okay. This is the 1983 single by Ted Kennedy's Nazi Punks Fuck Off.
Oh, can you get into the mic? I got a note about
Oh, yeah.
the mic for recording purposes.
Yeah.
Even if
Oh.
they can
Where's
hear
the
you,
mic?
it's for the recording. Sorry.
This is a 1983 single by Ted Kennedy's Nazi Punks Fuck Off. In the 80s, punk had a real neo-Nazi problem. I think that we might not, my debate rival and I might not totally disagree about this, but we'll go for it anyway. I think we should encourage people we don't like to build their gates higher and to lock them. I also think there's normal and abnormal gatekeeping. So Aristotle and Plato believed that evil was an aberration and that things are basically good. And abnormal gatekeeping, I think, is evil, but normal gatekeeping is necessary to the polis or civilization. In the 80s, the hardcore scene, Black Flag, Bad Brains, Dead Kennedys, there's a lot of Nazis showing up at the shows. And I relate to this as I grew up as a punk kid in Tennessee, much later, as a street punk kid, and Nazis and racists would show up to the shows. It's important to keep the fucking racists out of the shows. And, I think that's good gatekeeping, and it's moral. Because we wanted to create a safe space. Here's Rand Pettibone did this shirt on Henry Rollins, so there's a connection to art. This is Marshall Applewhite, who did Heaven's Gate cult. He castrated himself and then led a kind of mass suicide. And I think that's maybe a result of how Protestantism partially ruined Western society, just because I think that
I'm supposed to be disagreeing with
you can personally, you had the Catholic Church, which wasn't great, right? The major religion kind of but Protestantism was really bad because when you can personally interpret the will of God and do whatever you want and really believe it. Marshall Applewhite thought he was the reincarnation of Jesus Christ. We needed a priest to gatekeep a little bit. Next point. You wouldn't get mad at someone for not wanting to be your friend. I hope not. And everyone isn't supposed to be everyone's friend? Of course not. And can I expect an invitation to the next dinner party of anyone in this room? Of course not. I'm off. As it relates to galleries, everyone isn't invited to the gallery dinner, but everyone's invited in the door, except Donald Trump maybe. I mean, we don't want him there. I don't want him there. Let's do the next slide. This is my friend and dealer, Chris Sharp. Chris is a true believer. He can't represent every artist in Los Angeles. Logistically, he has to gatekeep. And I think that the position of to not like gatekeeping is basically a materialistic and capitalist position. One wants something another has and wants to unlock a gate. It's an aspirational position. It implies a desire for laissez-faire culture. And in contrast, we could centralize the galleries like single-payer healthcare. If galleries can't represent every artist, should we make a big gallery building that everybody puts work in whenever they want? Of course not. And of course, this is still gatekeeping, because the more centralized authority becomes, the more rules there inevitably are. Auxiliary points. The White House press corps needs some gatekeeping. And the last point is a more personal point, is I'm a fisherman. I like fishing and I gatekeep my spots because I don't want any of you there. I want to be able to enjoy my solitude. Thanks.
We're going to go around and let's hear what points you want Christina to respond to.
Us to clarify the nature of evil and gatekeeping. One of my beloved essays is Radically Evil Poetics by Vanessa Place, which states that people who are often accused of being evil are ones who think more and act for themselves and make moral and ethical decisions. So some of the gatekeepers that might come up in this conversation, like your gallery, people accuse them of being evil because they make a choice, but that requires bravery in my opinion. And so I'm hoping we can kind of clarify the role.
That's my first slide.
I would like Christina to respond to the very core premise, which is build gates higher and lock them, and the normal versus the abnormal of gatekeeping.
Okay. Let me try. I'm gonna fly through what I did with my slides really quickly because I've spent literal minutes whittling them.
Yeah.
And build gates higher. Okay.
Well, let's finish here and then you'll go. Let's go on. Keep going.
I don't have anything just yet.
Okay.
So just to repeat your points back to you, you're saying gatekeeping is upholding quality, keeping out racists, preventing people from castrating themselves. And you are not a good dinner party guest, but maybe you should be invited to dinner. You should not be invited to dinner. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so, yeah, you got those down.
Yeah.
Don't forget to speak into the mic.
Don't forget to speak in the mic. Okay. Well, I think the biggest issue, and it's almost like I'm gonna use Adam's argument against him because he used punk rock and the worker Raymond Pettibone, who worked with punk rock bands before getting into the art world, to try to get around what was my initial non-agreement with this. Was what I chose to be the con, which is I guess I'm arguing for not bringing back gatekeeping. And in that sense, well, I want to start with, I guess this is somehow, when I think of gatekeeping, a lot of people do think of it in terms of who's doing coke in the bathroom or who's in line for the tepid salmon steak at the gallery dinner. And somehow that not doing that would turn the art world into this. In fact, these people look happier than most of us. I wanted to talk about this. This looks crazy, but I'm gonna get my A crayon. This is a diagram by the conceptual artist Andre Frazier, which to her, this is basically her diagram of the art world. And I think a lot of the issues that we're having in general, and even in this debate, is when we talk about the art world, we don't know what art world we're talking about. And she I thought this was a joke, but apparently she means it. She outlined honestly 5 different kind of overlapping areas of the art world that produce both cultural capital and regular capital and like where they intersect. This is kind of why we're all going crazy in terms of what gatekeeping is. So I think the first question to talk about gatekeeping is like, where are you putting your gates and like what do you want out of being in the art world? Frankly, I thought this was being in the art world. This is like a Getty Images photo from 10 years ago. And I was like, I fucking made it. And then now, you know, some people think like this is the art world. Thanks, Sammy. And
Is that from somebody?
no, I just googled indie sleeves. So and then a lot of us I think would feel like this is the art world. But to be honest, like what this figure represents is going to be different for so many people. And as someone who actually has a somewhat of a career completely outside of the art world, I often get asked, what's it like being in the art world? And the response I come up with, which is kind of just for rhetorical flair, but I sort of mean it, as I say, the art world is not a place. It's a psychogeographical space. It's a group of people, of 60 to 80 people in your mind, that only exist as a group in your mind, that you've decided need to take you seriously. And I think that's a different group for all of us. And I feel like in order to keep the art world interesting, and it's interesting because there is, I agree, exclusivity, and there's things that we can and can't get into, but it's also exciting because it is fed from so many other worlds. It's like, it's fed by subculture and it's fed by academia, and that's what makes it more exciting than either of those places. So I would say maybe if I had to argue for less gatekeeping, I think there should be less gates between, I think there should be a more porous give and take between like what we consider in the art world and not in the art world. And fucking kill the gatekeeper in your mind. I also say I absolutely disagree with one of Adam's points. I would love to have dinner with him.
Okay, hold on. So let's go around and pick out what you want Adam to respond to. Oh, we can do that. Let's keep it. Go ahead, Janelle.
Okay, so you're saying gatekeeping is not very pump, and the gates are poorly defined, and oh, actually in that diagram, that Andrea Fraser diagram, and in that essay, point is that the art world is strongest where they overlap, actually, where those different fields overlap. That's ideal because then they support each other.
I don't think she's even putting a value judgment on it. It's more about orienting yourself in terms of this space, this thing we call the art world. Which
I feel like it's in the essay. I feel like she said that.
Go ahead, Keith.
Well, I was thinking, you know, maybe instead of, when I was looking at this diagram the whole time, I was thinking of, do any of you guys know that show Wife Swap? No, nobody know? Do you know that show Wife Swap?
Yeah.
So, like, you know, like, what would happen if like, you know, Andrea Fraser was like, you know, all like suddenly represented by Pace or Gagosian, and suddenly Jonas Wood was teaching like theory seminars at UCLA.
Oh, are you asking me to address that, or is that something you want?
No, yeah, she's at Marion Goodman. But I'm saying, what if she was at Gagosian? Is Gagosian?
I mean, the same.
Price.
Different vibes.
Let's keep it to what you want him to respond to what she said.
I was thinking about the gates. You were talking about the mesh.
Where they are.
Yeah, just like that was sort of a caricature question to be like, how do the gates gate swap? Gate swap.
Go ahead, Andrea.
Yeah.
Sure. So Adam said build gates higher and lock them, and Christina said less gates between art and non-art. And I'm not like totally sure how these are in opposition to each other as a debate.
I think we should be courageous and agree a little bit, but I think what's going on is we need to define, we're talking about institutional gatekeeping, local gatekeeping, because I think per the diagram, that's where this is really going on. I think things like we should use some words like race, class, gender, sexuality a little bit. I mean, I love the punk examples, and I also don't like Nazis. But I'm a person who's obviously, I'm black, I'm intersex, that's fucking crazy, that's news to me too. And I feel like the ways that I have to interact with people and what's expected of me as an art worker is fucking crazy, right? So for me, it's personal, right? Like, and I do derive an extreme, very sexualized pleasure of subverting the gate, and I've succeeded in doing that, right? I mean, that's part of why I'm at this table. So I kind of want to hear some more specifics beyond the obvious, like, Nazi stuff. And again, they do, and I love that. And I also want to hear some more stuff about, like, okay, like, how are the institutions gatekeeping? What does the gatekeeping look like at a local level?
So thank you for that. Adam, so in your response, some of the things we want to hear a little more of is, like, where are the gates being put? Also, what's cool from Christina was, like, it's not a physical it's a psycho-geographical place. So I think that'd be psycho-geographic. Is that the word you used? I think that was a psycho-geographic. It's about the 60, the idea that it is just the art world, quote unquote, is actually just like 60 to 80 people that you're obsessed with.
That I can talk about.
And yeah, go from there.
All right, yeah, let's start with the last point, which is 60 to 80 people that you're obsessed with. I think these 60 to 80 people are actually incredibly crucial to forming the scene, you know. And I'll go back to music a bit, in that, like, when I was younger, I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee. The coolest people were in bands, you know. The coolest and hottest people were in bands, and you know, there were shows every night in various warehouses and people's basements and shit. And you would show up, hundreds of people would show up to shows, right, to potentially hang out with these cool, hot people, you know. And I think that the kind of example of casual encounters is interesting, because I think that this is like an example of creating a kind of a core group of people that kind of reflect and taste make and things. I think that's normal. I think that that's just a normal part of the polis, you know. I think that the psychogeographical place that is gatekeeping, I don't really understand what that, I mean, I understand what psychogeographical means, but I think...
It means if, like, most of the 68 people are, like, in Europe and you've never met them and you've
Yeah, so it's a personal thing. It's a personal and emotion. It's a personal and emotional problem. I get that. You know, this diagram is, you know, Andrea Fraser, I think, is way smarter than me. This diagram, I don't like it. I don't look at it. I think the colors are nice. But there's too much for me. You know, I'm just only medium smart. There's too much language for me in that, and I think it's confusing. I think that all the language is a form of gatekeeping. You know, in a way. I think that art is pre-linguistic, fundamentally. So I think that that's a gate Andrea Fraser's doing, but I like her. I think she's funny. Psychogeographical place, yeah. So it's an emotional place. You know, I think that there's a tendency I've noticed, and this is a pet theory. This is where I'm getting into something, a personal theory of mine. But I think that there's often a place where people feel they have they feel excluded, they feel alienated. We're born feeling alienated. We all have. You know, and the race was brought up, and that's a real issue. I'd say that that's an evil form of gatekeeping. I think that that's immoral and evil, but in terms of just like the psychogeographical place of gatekeeping, aside from definable socio-economic or socio-political issues, I think it's a way. I think that sometimes there's a tendency to theorize personal feelings. That maybe my feelings got hurt, but instead of saying my feelings got hurt and I feel alienated or excluded, we need to make a theory about it and pile language on it. And I think that that's basically rhetorical and sophist.
Okay, cool.
So we're gonna go around this here in one stakes quickly. You need a mic.
I have to take issue with it being personal. It's structural. And I'm a closet Lacanian. I'm a big psychoanalysis person. And there's no such thing as the personal in my mind. You're simply a structure that acquires other structures. That's how language begins. Right? We literally are words piled on top of each other. That's why we have names. That's why we can address each other. And I think the anxiety we have about gatekeeping comes to the fact that we can't communicate. We can't connect. And art is supposed to be a connection. So what this gatekeeping question kind of reveals in your response is that we're going to fail. And I think that artists struggle with the idea of failure, and that it gets personal because of that. Artists don't like to think that there's something wrong with them. I'm a great painter, I'm a great writer, but I have this blind spot I don't want to talk about because it makes my work seem and feel inefficient to me. And so I think that we got to really separate the personal and the structural, in the sense that the structural is going to always, I think, preempt the personal.
Neither of you guys said this. I just want to hear more about the sexual pleasure of gate crashing.
We all agree there.
Yeah, so I'm not going to talk about gate swapping again. But I do. We're talking a lot about scenes, like, you know, trying to be cool, be hip, and that's not that interesting to me. I think. I mean, I do want to keep Nazis away from me and my people at all costs. But something that is really alarming to me is that the art world is not more actively trying to keep arms dealers out, or big pharma out, or other people who should be kept out, because they are funding big white cubes that Janelle wants out of the art world, and in order to, fewer of them, but in order to keep them going, we need to also apparently keep genocide going. So I would like to crash those gates and, or you know, build them higher, like lock those. I mean, however we're articulating this, but yeah, those are the people who those are, to me, are like on equal ground as Nazis. So.
My question for Christina about gatekeeping. I mean, the literal function of a gate is for protection. It's a wall, and a new item comes in. Is everyone entitled to everything and to go everywhere? And if we remove gatekeeping, what is the protection of, like, the value of the space? Do you trust everyone to come in? And is that good for the entire group, or, like, you know, the in-group?
So before you start jamming, some of the things that we thought would be cool to keep responding to in addition to your stuff is the language as an act of gatekeeping. I thought was kind of an interesting point. The sexual pleasure of gate crashing, and then building bigger gates to keep out some of these more like nefarious corporate actors.
Okay, let me start with this idea of theorizing the personal, because I think it does, relate to race, because I have, and maybe some of us on this panel have very specific memories of the first time I was offered a review or a job because we want a Mexican writer, because we only feel like a Mexican writer should write about a Mexican artist. I don't know if anyone's ever offered you anything and straight up said because you're a white man, but I feel like whiteness in general can become like an unspoken privilege of not having to theorize the personal. So there's that. In terms of, you know, language as a form of gatekeeping, because art is pre-linguistic, I think everyone here generally uses language as their form of art, so that's a tricky way of saying it. And I think language, I mean, I like Andrea Fraser, like myself, we're both like crazed autodidacts. I didn't go to art school, I learned criticism on the streets, and in that sense, language is a form of gatekeeping, but language is also the gate crashing, and I absolutely get sexual pleasure from that.
I wrote a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, this is the trick. What's the value of the gate if we're all letting in? How do I know that I fucking belong in the magazine if they said we're giving you this because you're Mexican? How do I know I belong in institutions that are giving you this because we need to fucking fill out a box for our mission statement, while also, you know, we're lowering this gate and also lowering the gate for, you know, the arms dealers. So I have a hard, I'm trying to stay with my assigned topic, and I don't think we're entirely disagreeing on things. I'm gonna try to disagree more and say that I think you're great at dinner. maybe we can try talking more about that. It's sort of like, it creates a really interesting problem when it's like, well, we're trying.
About what?
In terms of, let's focus on institutions, right? So I mean, the problem for me is also just where are the gates, defining the whole area of the art world in general, in terms of art institutions, which are often fed by the MFA system and fed by the gallery system. Like, when you start lowering those gates, I mean, that's a question. Does it affect the quality of the work if we start lowering the gates on the basis of race or socioeconomic status or marginal status? I mean, I have confidence in my own work that that is not the case if I've been hired on those bases, but it does create a weird environment where it makes things tricky to talk about.
Okay, so we're gonna let Adam respond to all that.
I think whiteness as an invisible subject position is an interesting place to come from, and I can maybe talk about this through my experience as a graduate student. It's like there's this ongoing problem that comes up in MFA critiques where it's like, I forget who said this originally, maybe it's even like, why is it that we can talk about paintings of white people as people of why do we have to talk about paintings of black people as paintings of black people, etc. And you can kind of, that's a different sort of thing. Yeah, I mean, I think that is not something that maybe, I mean, I think that's real. I think that those you know, that language is structurally there. I think that in terms of like crashing the gates of that whole system, it's sort of interesting because I came to it from a working class position and came through like not paying any money and kind of had a crash course in people expecting to make money from art. But I think that there is, I don't know. Yeah, I think that's what I would consider moving back into like keeping the racists out of the punk show. I think that there's a kind of like evil position that it's important to talk about. But in terms of like how I experienced my own invisibility, I don't know. I mean, I guess that's something we could talk more about. I mean, I get if there's something specific that we should talk about that.
I guess, that was just my defending this idea of theorizing the personal as like a valid place to come from. When you're like, against my own will, like obviously racially I'm white, ethnically I'm a Mexicanista, but it's, I'm trying to disagree, but we're also like, I would say that regarding that point, I think it's related to all this question of like real estate and artist lives. I also come from a working class background. I'm a nouveau bourgeois Latin immigrant that learned how to shop and has good taste. But I would say the socioeconomic factor I'm going to say is more important, is more significant for me than like a strictly racial factor in terms of gates.
Okay. Look, I mean, I think that maybe we can connect this to the sexual pleasure of gate crashing, you know?
Yeah, let's go back to that.
I think that this, like,
I'm doing kegels.
I had it, I think I applied to graduate school. I went to the Yale School of Art, but I applied to graduate, I've been rejected from graduate school 30 times, I think. I applied to graduate school 3 times.
Are you theorizing the personal right now?
Well, no. There's an eventual climax, sexual climax to this. I applied all those times. I went to a program. I was defunded. I left that program and took a year off. I applied a 3rd time and I got into fantasy school. And I got there as an anarcho kid with a big standard poodle and didn't understand any of the structures of presentation. When they said open studios, I just kept painting and let people in. And there was I got a lot of pleasure from crashing that gate. because I was learning a lot. I didn't go to any kind of, it was the first real college experience. I took a lot of undergraduate courses at Yale that I didn't get to take in the shitty little art school that's now closed that I did undergrad in. And I got a real education, formalized education that wasn't piecemeal. And also, I got to fuck with people a lot. I was trying things out and fucking with people a lot. And
Literally, or is this a metaphor?
Oh yeah, no, I was married, so I was fucking, but only I was, it was in my home. But yeah, no, I was trying to find. I think that it's important to have. It's like a sexual pleasure in pushing against those walls. But without those walls existing or the gates existing, for me as a contrarian and I don't know, somebody who likes to try to figure out where the boundaries are. Without those boundaries existing, there's nothing to sort of make jokes or push against, And so the big formal structure where everyone's trying to follow all the rules is heaven for me. I'm coming all over the place with that.
Okay, well.
I just want to end this real quick by also saying that, I started writing about art professionally before I ever even studied it formally. And I got into this world because I happened to be next door neighbors with Andrew Berardini, and I was interning at a fashion magazine and not happy, and one day he just goes, maybe you should try writing about art. And if everyone in the room who has a Warhol grant for arts writing could raise their hand. I do, I don't know. I'm trying to disagree, but it's like the gates are there to be crashed, but also like, it's somebody's gotta get through. To make art.
To be fair, I think that if you want to get into a fancy school, just apply till you get in. I think basically it's like that's the only thing you have to do.
We're gonna close it up. Say one thing.
Trust me, I think the thing that I want to say to you personally is I always wish for better oppressors, right? And that's why I want from gatekeeping. If you're going to do it right.
Okay, so now we're gonna take it to the audience. Okay, so who wants to bring back gatekeeping like Adam? Okay, and now who wants it never went away and doesn't want it with Christina?
That was really democratically outstanding.
Oh.
I do. Yeah. What's the difference between gate crashing and assimilating?
Oh. That's why
Next thing. Okay, let's do it one more time. If you like what Adam said. You want to, that's gatekeeping. I think I can do that on the second round. It felt.
Assimilation question.
We'll talk after.
Yeah, don't worry, there's time to talk afterwards. We're gonna move along to the next question. And Janelle's gonna start us off, bro, and that is, does art have to look good? And then the negative is gonna be Keith. So go ahead, Janelle.
Hi everyone, it's me again. Is this on?
Is that mic on? Sorry.
Hello? Okay. Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you?
The mic's not working. Here, use this one.
Has it not been working? Hello?
I think I can just talk. Oh, is this on? Yeah. Okay, so the question is art have to look good? So. I think we should start by defining what we mean by look good. For me, I think good can mean many things. It doesn't necessarily mean pleasant or pleasant. Art can, looking good can be grotesque. Looking good can be unpleasant. looking good can be disgusting, it can be revolting, it can be disturbing. Art can be beguiling. Good can be beguiling. Good can be difficult to understand. Good can be not immediately legible, or might take a long time to really get to the root of. Looking good can be totally simple, or totally absent, or abstract, plain. But I think at the heart of it, good means that the artist considered the visual qualities of what they are doing. Because at the end of the day, if you are making visual work, it has to have a visual presence. Beauty is where art derives its power. Beauty is where... Sorry, I got so into the conversation. I totally forgot what my argument was going to be. That visual art should be a visual experience that is exceptional because the artist has tested the medium that they're working in and they have justified the reason for why the art exists. Because it is something different from ordinary reality based on the way it looks. Beauty is the difference between a conceptual work of art and what could have been an essay, or what could have been a tweet, or what could have been a PCAF. Looking good is the difference between Ed Sheeran and Jackson Pollock. And that's where I'll end it for now.
Okay, thank you, Janelle. Okay, so we're gonna go around and pick out some notes that you all want. Do you have a mic over there still or no? I think we're down a mic. Here. Yeah. So, Adam, you want to go first?
Yeah, I would love to hear more about the difference between Ed Sheeran and Jackson Pollock. Let's do it.
I'd love to hear a little bit of, this is like an outline of an absent point, but I just think about what Duchamp said about the importance of the anti-retinal, so I'd like that to be addressed.
That is also my concern. I'm a multimedia researcher, and so a lot of the art I'm working with is literally not meant to be looked at. It's coming through the ear or the skin, and so I know that we're often looking at visual art, but I think it's important to subvert that expectation.
Okay, so some points. The idea of defining good can be kind of open to that, considering the visual qualities. Beauty is where art derives its power to a certain extent. Visual art should be an experience, and also something I thought that you said that was interesting, Janelle, is visual art should not be essayistic. Was that something you said?
I just think if your art does not look good, then why didn't you write an essay? If your visual art does not look good, why didn't you just write an essay?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting conversation.
So should Hans Haka have never become an artist?
You should know.
I strongly disagree. Okay. Maybe you should not have. And you went to the same fancy school as Adam, right?
Oh no, I did not.
You didn't?
Much fancier school. Long story. I don't want to interfere anymore in the debate. Sorry.
What school did you go?
Did you not go to Yale?
Oh, that one, yeah.
Yeah.
The Cooper Union first.
Right.
I don't want to tell the whole story. You want me to tell the story, I will, but that's a whole.
How about after the debate? Go ahead, Keith.
Yeah. So since we're talking about, wait, can you give me those things that you wanted me to touch upon again?
I mean, respond in general, but also that art should not be essayistic, or should avoid trying to be essayistic. It should be a visual experience. Yeah, and it derives its power.
Very serious.
Thank you for your patience, y'all. Well, so going backwards, if we're defining what makes something look good very openly, I think we should do the same with beauty. What is beauty? Is Ed Sheeran beautiful? No. I don't think Ed Sheeran or his music is beautiful. When I hear his music, I want to pierce my ears. Not the lobes, my actual ears. I think that, when I'm walking the streets, sometimes I see things that are far more beautiful on the sidewalk than I do in one of these white cubes. And that could be, a piece of trash that was, that just happened to be propped up against a piece of wood that was, leaned against some chipped paint. And there's an Instagram account called, I think it's called like Game Culture or something like that, that posts photos like this in slides every single day. This to me is good, beautiful art. I think that Jackass, I just saw that Jackass is having an exhibition at the Complex headquarters in a couple of weeks. I think Jackass made some of the most beautiful, good-looking art ever made. They were one of the biggest influences in me getting into art. I don't think that you need to. I take issue with the anti-essayistic. I don't know why art has to be, a painting. A visual art has to be a painting or a photograph or a drawing, if that's what we are arguing. I think that visual art can be nearly anything. I'm not sure what the anti-retinol point was. Maybe somebody else can bring that up for me.
We'll get back to that. Back up. Sure.
Yeah, and when I think of good-looking art, some of my favorite exhibitions that I've seen in the last, 10 or so years have been like Georgie Novell at Renus Follins in 2013, which was a bunch of unwashed dishes in containers. That was beautiful. That was good-looking art. Or Darren Bader putting a Norelco shaver into a bowl of soup at 1857 in Oslo. Is this good looking to you, Janelle? I'm not sure.
I don't know what it looks like, but I'm sure it's great.
I have a slide presentation.
Yeah,
Do you have anything else you want to say?
No, that's
okay, so let's
it.
go around.
So this one's turning out to be quite a difficult one. So I'm not going to fully unpack the anti-retinol, but I'm just going to talk about ugly art that's really important to me. One of my favorite painters is Mikhail Kreber, and he does these series of paintings that are called like the ridiculized snails. And they're not only ugly, but they're remakings of Kate Middleton paintings that sold at auction. And so the whole entire conceit is like, can my paintings sell for as much or more than hers? And they both remain shitty paintings. And to me, that's important for several moments in this kind of art dialogue, because it's like there's something other than the visual being active. It's the economic power, right? We're talking about beauty, but we're not really getting into what makes things beautiful in the context of an economy. I would say that beauty is often what I would call it dilation of economic power, meaning it's like it's been assigned beauty to give it value, right? And so aesthetics is not how things look; it's value in an economy, right? That's the true definition.
Christina, anything you want them to?
Well, just to clarify, the anti-retinol thing is just like Duchamp's whole shit was that art since the middle of the 19th century had become.
It wasn't about the facial.
Yeah, it was become too focused on pleasure and not on like the mind, and that's sort of that he actually favored conceptualism over craft. And if anyone wants to put a value judgment on that, then would be or respond to that. Yay.
Just got here, sorry.
Yeah, and was it like the whole thing with the Frankfurt School that like we were not supposed to, like the world was too fucked up to look at beautiful like things, and we weren't supposed to take. I mean, I'm not sure that the dirty dishes are supposed to be pleasurable, in that way. But that's what I'd like to talk about. Just like, are the terms correct here? In terms of like, are we thinking about, are we thinking about the condition of, are we trying to aestheticize something that's not supposed to be pleasurable?
So I think, Janelle, some of the points that we want to, so all of that, and then whatever you want to say, and then also, like the jackass made some of those beautiful art, trash on the street being beautiful art, and then the anti-art.
Well, I think that other things that are not art being beautiful does not like negate the fact that art should be beautiful. I think that good looking or bad looking and ugly are not the same things. I think you can find beauty in ugliness if it's done well. I think when I say good looking, what I mean is that the artist is showing me some kind of proficiency, some kind of thought in the ways like two edges meet, or like some kind of consideration about how their work exists in space. And not all art is visual, and that's definitely true. But I think there has to be some kind of care about how it lives and how it exists. Otherwise, it just exists in the mind. We all have ideas, but not all of us are artists. And I think that is like the defining factor, is like, does this person have a sense of how, or a vision? Does this person have a vision that is different from an ordinary person? I look at some of these examples. Like, I look at this Carol Walker sculpture, and I'm like, every single place. So this is like a Confederate monument that she butchered and then reassembled, and every single point of assembly is so considered. Like, there were, so the longer you look at it, the more it evolves, the more it gives you. It's giving. It's giving. I want my art to give. I do not want my art to feel like it was not, that anyone could have done it. That like anyone, like we've all had the same thoughts. Like, maybe not all of us, but we all think. And my expression is as a writer. The way that I process this idea is that every creative discipline is a language. My language is writing. So I don't really expect myself to make really great sculpture. And I don't expect an artist to write really great poetry or really great reviews. But that fluency is what makes them special in what they do. An artist who is visually fluent, who's like, they show us that they have been working their material, that they know it, that they've been testing it, that they've been exploring it, and they want more from it. And that manifests aesthetically, and then you see it. And I hate looking at non-looking art. I hate going to a gallery. I mean, like, this person does not like know their material intimately. They're just kind of like, like not fluent in their material. And I think that's like a disservice to the idea, to the material itself, and like the idea of what art should be.
So, do you want to respond to that? Given some of the things, so artists should be showing some proficiency. That's kind of what I was hearing, right? To some extent. Artists gotta give, quote unquote. Not everyone can just do it.
So, well, first of all, I initially did make a slide presentation, and it's funny that Wyatt brought up those Crepper paintings, because that specific show at Real Fine Arts was in the slide presentation. That was a really important and inspiring show for me. Concurrently, he had also had a show up at the gallery where he's represented in New York, Green Nepali, and all of those paintings were hand-painted, very scribbly, tall portrait orientation paintings of contemporary art daily screen grabs. And this exhibition took place in, I think, both that were concurrent, took place, I think, in 2011 or 12, right around the time that Contemporary Art Daily was blowing up and sort of changing the ways in which exhibitions were being mounted and documented. So again, he was, I think, like Wyatt was articulating previously, really fucking with what is good looking art and what makes art just good, period. And I think it also applies to the previous topic of gatekeeping, Contemporary Art Daily being now a major gatekeeper. Adam mentioned Georgie's dirty dishes not, potentially not being intended to have pleasure be derived from them. I wasn't necessarily saying that I got pleasure out of them, but what I did, maybe not visual pleasure per se, but intellectual curiosity, I thought that there was like a real, I think she was doing what Adam was talking about at the end of, making his points of like, there are borders, there are boundaries, let's push the goalposts, let's see, she had really simple and I think paintings that, based on Janelle's points, maybe would appeal to her, and this was like a really stark contrast to sort of upend the thesis. To some of Janelle's points, I was actually saying non-art can be art. And I would like to talk about that a little bit more. I would like to ask what actually determines well or good. Not just good looking, but she was talking about an artist needing to be proficient, to show proficiency, to exhibit that they are good at what they're doing. I have to be honest with all of you. I fucking hate Stairway to Heaven. I really, really do not like gratuitous guitar solos. So actually, when I see most painters who are just really whipping their dick out, I'm turned off most of the time. I'm not into big dick paintings most of the time. And art should not look like just anyone could have made it. I take issue with, I just don't, I kind of like when, I'm taken when I go to an exhibition and there's a real fluidness. There's a like-so quality to artworks. A like-so quality, there isn't, there's an intellectual rigor, but there's not a real fussiness to the work. And so oftentimes when it looks like, there's a real masterfulness or a wizardry, I'm like, this person seems like they would not be too good at a dinner party.
Okay, so do you want to say one last 30 seconds to respond to any of that?
Non-art can be art. Okay, well or good. You know it when you see it. I'm sorry. You know it when you see it. You go to a place and when I say art derives its power from beauty, it's it emanates an aura. It might not be visually beautiful that you can understand right away, but sometimes you walk in and you are so blown away by its aura, and it's something that can only happen if someone invests time in what they have done. And good looking is a manifestation of that. Good looking, it looks like somebody did something. And instead of proficiency, let's use the word conviction. I'm not looking for proficiency, I'm looking for conviction. You believe in your art, and so you considered the small details, the minutia of everything about it that exists, because it is yours, because you take ownership of everything that someone is looking at. I think that let's gatekeep that. The bar should be high. I think that we cannot just call everything art if it's just kind of slapped together. That's not what it's about. Intellectual rigor is important, but again, I can't say this enough. It's just yes, you can be very smart, but that doesn't make you a good artist. Being a conceptual artist is not just I have great ideas. You think of a way to express them in a material form. Otherwise, you just tweet, and it's fine.
All right, thanks. So we're going to take it to a vote now from the audience. Okay. Does art have to look good? Let's hear it from and what Keith was saying, Stairway to Heaven sucks. Proficiency alone is boring. Art doesn't have to look good. Big dick paintings are bad. Let's hear it for the people have spoken. Janelle definitely won that one. But, okay, so we have one last debate. Okay, Christina. Yeah, we'll it's 2:30, so we got a few minutes to go. Okay, so first up is Wyatt. And this is called, is useful art, tables, teapots, illustrations, etc. good or bad? And Wyatt's gonna do the first, and that it's not good.
It's very good. I mean, so
Okay.
I take issue with everything. That's kind of my shtick. I apologize. I venture. As a person that, I'm kind of born and raised on conceptual art. I can talk more about that later, but essentially, like, for me, there's like use, practicality, and function. And I think this question wants me to talk about things that involve use, physical use. And I'm gonna at times address that, other times veer from it, because I want to say that all art is useful, and it's up to how you want to use it. And I kind of picked a couple pieces that I thought helped me talk about these things. There's a lot of stuff I want to say, and I also want to say that this part of the conversation has a historical burden. Often when we're looking at useful art, we're looking at the past because those are objects that survived and get historicized. So I love Maxwell Graham Gallery. They did this show on the Shakers. I made the mistake of saying it was a Quaker show. The Shakers are a sect of Quakers who don't have sex. That will help you remember that. This is an apple peeler. If I gave you this in a gallery today, not a single one of you would think that's not art, right? And what Maxwell has helped elucidate is that documentation is the game. How you take the picture of the object is how it becomes art in the contemporary landscape. The show is beautiful. They paired all of these very use-oriented pieces of work, which may not be art, with contemporary art, which is great. You can show it up. And then, like I said, there's this whole question of objects that have been made outside the Western sphere that I think are quite beautiful and clearly are art because they have ornamentation, decoration that, again, they're going to see them in museums. But then that brings me to pieces like this. This is a piece that I really wish was in the Monument Show. This is Arnold Kemp's photo series. They're all entitled, He is the One Who's Wearing the Ku Klux Klan Mask. As you can see, it's got this African kind of pattern on it, and it actually exists. You can use it. It has a function. That's not a teapot, sadly. But again, that's great about this is that the photo ends up being the work, right? So I want to bring that up. There's this whole thing with use that comes up. Is the documentation driving it towards being an art object? Cameron Rowland is also very, very important artist to me. And to just kind of quickly go through this, these are police scanners that are attached to a recorder. He recorded police communications in the 5 boroughs for his project. So part of this thing about use and functionality, obviously, is political power and economic power, right? So artists who are not relying on the retinal to produce these kind of, I think, very useful points about contemporary society and power and politics. Another great for me, Slaps and Tatters. This piece, I'm going to try to quickly explain it. It's a fully functional, I don't even know what you would call these, like a little kid's ride. Nasruddin is this kind of like, Arabic figure that represents the Adam Hunter. He's kind of like this like pop mythical figure where he does all these things that are silly. He's like riding the horse backwards. But again, what Slaps and Tatters does that's really great is they make functional objects that are there to elucidate for people, like how art connects to history and how we make objects that are useful to kind of explore these points. What else I have? And then Laura Owen's Books and Tables. This is probably my favorite show they've seen in Los Angeles. All the tables, you can't really, I also want to say like a lot of these images, I can't show you how the object is being used, right? And that feels like a really noteworthy limitation in the sense that you can't see how it activates, even with like the hatchet and the scanner. Here, these are books that many of them were like handmade by Loren in her studio, and then many of the tables have physical buttons on them that open up and they contain more books, and it's this whole kind of puzzle you can go through to see the content. And so yeah, I just think that this all clearly is art. But I also wanted to land on this last image and bring it back to this point about functionality. Belleza y Felicidad is a gallery started by this Argentinian artist, Fernando Laguna, and it's unique because it's an artist-run space, but a functional gallery that sells work. But one of the things that they did that I think brings us back to this conversation about functionality in art is that they went into the community and invited many unhoused people to make work in the space, and then they sold that work and put it back in the community. So I want to just basically say that our resistance to functional art is grounded in politics. I also want to say that the fantasy that art isn't functional or should not be functional is a desire to escape the market function, and it's an odious libidinal fantasy of art world marketeers. Yes.
Okay. We're going to go around and respond quickly and give us points for Christina to respond to. No, go. You're going. Okay. No one wants us to add anything? That's fine. What, no, say it in the microphone.
Argument, but
Yeah.
I want to see what Christina's position is. Like,
Yeah.
Well, some things that we want to hear from is all art is useful, how you take the picture determines if it's art, and go for it.
Okay, go to the next slide. The only image I have is Dakota Johnson saying she loves limes for her Architectural Digest tour. Which, is this on? Is this working? Yeah, in the next second, she also just said, I lied, I don't even care about limes. Just she's allergic to limes, the stylist told me to say that. There is a really complicated thing happening with the ideas of use versus function. I also believe that all art is useful, but I also believe that elevating every functional object to the status of art creates the kind of divisions that Wyatt is arguing are undone by projects like the Fernando Laguna project. Also, I don't think the unhoused artists that were invited into that space are making what the prompt said, which is things like furniture, teapots, etc. They were making art. So it had a function, but those were not functional objects. And I guess, like, just in terms of like cultural fatigue, I don't need my fucking couch and my teapots and my spoons to also like attest to my vision, my personality, my cultural standing. And maybe we're talking at cross purposes because I'm focusing a little bit on this idea of like design in galleries or design galleries writ large. I'll also just say this about the Shakers. Their celibacy extended to even procreative sex. So they were basically a death cult who wanted to celibate themselves out of existence. There was a big article, maybe in the New York Times recently, that was celebrated. They eventually are pretty much dying out because of their beliefs. So I don't know what use these objects are. Who is left to use these objects? I also want to point out that this show, which is beautiful, it was titled Shaker Objects and Their Infinities. So it had Shaker objects, but they were juxtaposed with objects by artists like, I think, Wade Guyton, Robert Gober, who were inspired by Shaker material culture. So even then, it seems like the functional objects required like the aura of the museum or the aura of juxtaposition to art objects in order to require that status, which is just fundamentally exclusionary. And I think by elevating objects, which Shaker objects are really fucking beautiful, and they are really fucking useful. And by elevating them to the status of art, they are really not available to most people who could use them. I would say the same thing about mid-century modern art. And then there's the problem of historicization, which somehow keeps us stuck at this fetishizing a fucking Werner Patton chair or like a Shaker chair. And I would say that it's honestly a category that I tend to ignore because what passes as, I think, functional art as a historical category is legitimate, but it's sort of an anthropological category. And contemporary functional art is essentially furniture and objects that are so over-designed to absolutely push the limits of its functionality in order to try and call itself art. I don't need an over-designed, extraneous legged table. I need a good table. And if you want to design a overly designed table that's maybe not sculptured yet, I don't know, that's not my fucking problem.
Any comments on that for the panel? Yep.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I was just thinking, maybe Donald Judd figured it all out.
Donald Judd, con los pinches cajas de agua, ¿cuánto cuesta su casa de agua? He figured out how to charge $800 for a wooden box. But I think that's the problem of like.
No, but what I'm saying is that he's not like saying that there's no like trickery. Like what I'm saying is like calling just a chair, elevating it to art, or calling art function, whatever. It's just like this is my table. I'm an artist who's making a table, and if you want it, you can have it. You probably can't have my thing that is at my gallery, but here's my table, and it's beautiful and it's reminiscent of my shit I have on the walls or the floor.
Yeah. Maybe then my issue is with the system that would like treat anything an artist makes automatically as art. Because in that way, also a Donald Judd table is a really beautiful functional object, but it's also very scarce in terms of access for how easy it is to build.
So some of the points. Elevating it means it's not available. Elevating objects into art means it's not available to normal people that can't buy that stuff. Functional object requires an aura of institution. Go ahead, respond.
There's many things obviously coming up here. Donald Judd sucks. I think this work sucks. I'm bored. I'm gonna die soon. I don't care. I don't want to see that. And the last thing I want to deal with is an institution telling me I need to consume this thing because it has a use. I completely agree that there's this institutional elevation, which is why I'm talking about the documentation. But I would also say in the system we're in this capitalist system where institutions are often the, oh God, okay. I'm not to get heated. So these Kreber paintings, I have this frequent joke I make about some of them. What is it? World Contemporary. Yeah. So my joke is, when the Marcianos bought those and they put them in the foundation, they got the C stock, right? So all the really good ones they missed out on. They got the ones that got bought last, right? And I feel like what happens is that we're taking these very contemporary attitudes about art and the market, and we're constantly conflating them with what's actually being made. And what that does is it obscures labor, right? And so I love talking to people about art, and in particular, I love this artist, and they made this thing by hand. I'm like, no, it was made in a factory in Mexico with the rest of the pieces in the collection by the same group of people who are underpaid and exploited, but you continue loving it, right? And so I think one of the reasons I will always step up and defend functional or practical art is it's often handmade or construction, and if it is designed, what's going on is that it's designed, it's meant to be remade. It can be reproduced or manufactured. And there's always going to be, I think, a very productive contradiction between that, because often being able to be replicated means more access. We all have smartphones here, I assume, right? That's the beauty of that thing. A lot of these attitudes about art and this aura stuff comes from, I think, Western thinking. I unfortunately had to read some Hegel this morning. I was looking at the introductory lectures to Fine Art, which is actually a really important piece of writing. I recommend you look at it. And one of the things he talks about is like part of the reason why we want to search for spirit in things that are handmade, like paintings, is that they're hard to reproduce. They're often put in a position where they can't be damaged. So when you make ceramics and they're actually being used, the question is, do they last the test of time? So when you're seeing those objects in museums that are the tools or like the daily use things, part of their beauty is that they survived. Right? And I just think that today, and I think this is your point, I want to agree with you, there's a lot of shit we make that is allegedly useful, but actually just forms detritus over time. It's going to be thrown away, it's not going to be kept. And I think that there's an urge that I have and a desire I have where there's a kind of synthesis where you can both aura farm at the institution, but produce an object that people will love organically and physically. right? I think we live in a disconnected, detached society, and we produce art that shows that. And so when you have things that are useful, it implies that someone both made it, or not automatically. I'm looking for things that are handmade and they're gonna be hand used, if that makes sense.
Christina, you want to wrap it?
Yeah, I just want to say, I think this is the inescapable thing. We're not disagreeing about the beauty of functional art, but even in that, like, I think a lot of the art examples we use, these are artists who are leveraging a functional object to make a larger point. And when I think about objects in museums can be handmade and should be used, but if they're in a museum, they've already escaped the level of being used, even if they are beautiful and functional and handmade. I'm just over it with design galleries, I think.
Okay, so does anyone in our panel want to respond to anything before we take it to the audience?
I want to ask a question. It's sort of related to Donald Judd, which I think is a philosophy. Andrew Fraser also has a kind of philosophy. I kind of, and to me, they both have made art objects and design objects based on a similar philosophy. Can we kind of maybe, do we disagree or agree about that, or?
In terms of like art, like Andrea Zattel was like making clothes.
Yeah, I said Andrew Fraser.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's a little bit, I think it's a beautiful vision in terms of what it proposes, but the reality of making that proposal actual reality is a little bit disingenuous. Like, I don't know anyone who even actually wants to, or who, unless you have here, who like buys Andrea Zattel, knit dresses and little sleeping pods and doodads. It's so in that way it is even like in the it's like I don't want to make it like a magical thing, but in the context of an artist's practice, especially when it's like a whole world like that, it's hard to when it's divorced from things like completely divorced from like manufacturing, like policy about how the stuff gets disseminated. It is art insofar as that it's not actually very functional, in terms of like, is this a functional object that is accessible, that even the artist would even want other people to have, the value of it. I think I'm making sense.
Too expensive.
Yeah, but also I like Donald Judd's writing.
Do you want to say like the last?
Yeah, I
30
mean,
seconds?
I was going to bring up a quick thing, which is like there's use and there's necessity. So another thing I wanted to bring up was food. Everyone here needs to eat something to survive. And for a long time, and this goes back to old boy Hegel, the idea that you would produce a consumable as art was considered silly because it's not immortal, it can't be worshipped, it can't be given the aura because you're going to consume it, you're going to shit it out, and it's going to return to what it started as. And I don't think that solves the dilemma that we're in, but I think it tells you a lot about what institutions do for us. They're there to soothe a crisis and make us believe that it's manageable and it can be reformed. And I think that practical objects and the museums are a way of the museums taking these things that we've made that have been lived through and cycling them back and being like, we do this great function for you. We're totally necessary so you can remember where you come from. I don't believe in that at all. But I want to be clear, it's like just because I don't believe in that doesn't mean I don't recognize the importance of these very human contributions and our needs. Right? I think the thing that I really want to come out against is the idea that institutions get to tell us, our institutions in particular, what we need, what we desire. Right? And I think that functional objects are always going to have this trap that Christina is like harmlessly illustrating because we're living in a fucked up world. Right? And I just think it's like, we're going to keep going back to these things like philosophies. That's a Band-Aid. It's a Band-Aid. And Donald Judd, it's like, part of the reason, this goes back to the economics of all this, part of the reason that these artists that have that kind of stature have their writings documented and circulated is because we worship them. It's not because that they came into this world with this virtuosity. They were given the economic privilege of disseminating their work.
I'm trying to, like, if Andrea Zattel was just like a random girl on Etsy in Wyoming, like, would we consider those objects or those dresses, art?
Okay, so let's take it to the audience.
I know we're disagreeing.
Yeah. Okay, so is functional art is a historically recognized category that rules? Why? LOL design wants to be art so bad and isn't. Christina. Wyatt won on that one. That's all we've got for today. So give it up for all these amazing people. Together with our